There were giants in the earth in those days. And when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 7 are some of the most enigmatic verses in the Old Testament. What are these verses referring to? Was there actually giants living on earth at the time before the Great Flood? This period is often called the antediluvian period. Ante meaning before, and diluvian meaning deluge, or flood. There are early Jewish writings and other ancient texts which expound upon these verses. Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian, implies they are related to the Greek gods.
Josephus and the Book of Antiquities, many angels of God now consorted with women, and begot sons on them who were overbearing and disdainful of every virtue. Such confidence had they in their strength. In fact, the deeds that our tradition ascribed to them recall the audacious exploits told by the Greeks of the giants. But Noah urged them to adopt a better frame of mind and amend their ways. The Book of Antiquities chapter 3.
The flood of the Bible, and the Greek flood myth, are remarkably similar. Is it possible the Greek myths are not myths? Was Zeus a Nephilim? Nephilim is the Hebrew word for giants. Was his father a fallen angel, called the sons of God in Genesis 6? The ancient Greeks believed in a flood that destroyed all mankind, similar to the account described in the Bible. In the Greek myth, the flood took place during the age of Deucalion. Deucalion and his wife, Pyrrha, were warned in advance of the coming deluge and told to construct a chest and fill it with provisions. The source of the coming deluge was the anger of Zeus towards mankind. Zeus had become disgusted at the degeneration of humans, and in particular, the practice of human sacrifice. Zeus assembled the gods and decided to wipe out mankind by water. Deucalion and Pyrrha survived the flood by floating in the chest they built. There are a great number of differences between the Greek myth and the account of the flood described in the Bible. However, both accounts maintain that the world was destroyed as the result of mankind's sin, and the human race was saved as a result of a few individuals leading a righteous life. This same story is worldwide. Every culture has a flood story. Many of these stories refer to the giants before the flood, just as the Greeks refer to the gods, the Titans and the Olympians. Many scholars are making the association of these Greek gods with the Nephilim and the fallen angels from the Genesis account. The Titans being the fallen angels, or as the Book of Enoch calls them, watchers, and the Olympians being the Nephilim. But the discussion of giants on earth goes much further and more deep.
The Church of Jesus Christ is largely sleeping, like a great bedroom. And you have all the Christians in bed, and they're all sleeping. And they're saying, please, don't wake me up! I want to sleep on. And of course, then God starts to operate a revival. People cannot sleep. You can't sleep in church when the Spirit of God awakes the people. Look at the first verse of this 52nd chapter. Awake! Awake! Put on strength! Wake it up, you sleepy Christians! Awake, all the sleepers! Arise from the dead! Rise, smoke in your eyes!
Keep this in mind from an old man. There is no finality to the Christian life this side of eternity. We pray that some of us may go to our own funerals at night and die to self and end all the failure and all the weakness.
Why should a person come to the cross? Why should a person embrace death with Christ? Why should a person be willing to go in identification down to the cross and into the tomb and up again? I'll tell you why. Because it's the only way that God can get glory out of a human being.
If I was to ask you tonight, you're saved, do you say, yes, I'm saved? When? Oh, so-and-so preached, I got baptized, and are you saved? What are you saved from? Hell? Are you saved from bitterness? Are you saved from lust? Are you saved from cheating? Are you saved from lying? Are you saved from bad manners? Are you saved from rebelling against your parents? Come on, what are you saved from?
Who shall ascend the hill of God? Who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul to vanity, nor sworn deceitfully, he shall receive the blessing of the Lord.
And there's no room for him in the inn. He got a bit older. There was no room in his family. His family turned on him. He went to the temple. No room in the temple. The temple turned on him. And when he died, there was no room to bury him. He died outside of the city. Well, why in God's name do you expect to be accepted everywhere? How is it the world couldn't get on with the holiest man that ever lived and it can get on with you and me? Are we compromised? Are we compromised? Are we no spiritual stature? Are we no righteousness that reflects on their corruption?
He that is from above is above all. I want to say to you, Christians, don't go around apologizing for him. Don't go around worried because you can't make his doctrines fit in with what you've learned in school. All you learned in school was one fallen head instructing another fallen head. And you don't have to apologize for him.
But as dear Dr. Tozer used to say, Len, you knew one thing about a man that was carrying a cross out of the city. You knew he wasn't coming back. Just come to an altar and we go back the next week and we're as fascinated. We haven't spent half an hour with Jesus, but we've spent 2 stinking hours in a movie house. And Paul says that's what the world is to me. It's a system of corruption and rottenness and violence. It's anti-Christ from the world go. Is the world crucified to you tonight, or does it fascinate you?
Do we not need a very much greater conception of how tremendously valuable a true expression of the church is to the Lord? It's priceless. But the Lord give us more of this anguish for his church as a whole. Then it will be precious to him.